So, 200 videos, huh? It's been a while since I released consistent content. What can I say? Life's a female dog. So I figured I'd do something special for this occasion, and this one won the poll. Basically, this video will be talking about some of my more recent favorites in terms of matchups, which I've only come to like in the past few years or something. So let's get into it. Starting off things is one of my favorite villain matches in recent memory, All for One vs Sukuna, My Hero Academia vs Jujutsu Kaisen. I have been a major My Hero Academia fan for years at this point, and All for One is by far one of my favorite characters in the story, and the best villain without debate, so shut up all you shit-rocking meat riders. In tune with seeking a debate for him, my favorite for him is by far Sukuna. The connections are simple and brilliant, with two millennia-old kings of the monsters who possess younger warriors and are famous for battling their world's strongest, duking it out in a battle to rule everything and fulfill their own dreams to tear everything down. All for One's army of quirks and powers to throw at Sukuna's own arsenal, on top of the destruction they can bring to the area and the damage you can bring, make this fairly similar to how Madara vs Aizen went, in a maniacal duel between anime conquerors. Also, the best part of this is how, due to All for One having Rewind, the fight can recreate Maharaga walking through Malevolent Shrine, which is raw as heck. All for One also buys, despite all the cope JJK Glazers have been pushing recently. Speaking of multi-century old warriors, another one I've recently fallen in love with is the Knight vs the Samurai, Europe vs Asia. Real-life death battle ideas never really piqued my interest, like bringing Alexander the Great, for example, or somebody else like that. This one, however, is the major exception. Not only can you include basically all of their weapons in almost a mythological duel of honor, but truly showcase just why these warriors have carved their way into history for all time. To top things off, I recently worked on a blog for this and ensured that sweet, sweet Knight victory. Not much to explain, it's just fire all around. Next up is Jason Voorhees vs Killer Croc, Friday the 13th vs DC Comics. Yeah, Michael Myers is 100% Jason's best, and that's never changing. Look, I agree. But as far as alts go, Croc is by far my favorite for Jason. The two have relatively simple connections, man-made monsters who were bullied as children for their appearance, and that results in their being a water-based murderer. But unlike Michael, Croc can put up a bit more of a fight to the supernatural aspect of Jason, and I did grow up watching him more in stuff like The Batman. Having a more superhuman battle fits Jason for a more hype animation, all things considered, that doesn't have the Joe victim running around. And you could do plenty with it, like having either one sneak up on each other or land in the water, have both utilize the environment for weapons while just refusing to die, and having a final duel in the water where they came from. As far as for who wins, Jason should manage to comfortably win thanks to novel stuff, and his battling the likes of Freddy Krueger or Ash Williams. Speaking of The Batman, another idea I have is The Batman vs the Spectacular Spider-Man. This is pretty simple, the standard Cape Crusader vs New York Sweathead, but in a cartoon format that I grew up with that details their early years and a younger take on the character, as well as their worlds. For this purpose, both have several unique gadgets they can bring to the table, multiple acrobatic and intellectual plays to make, and a crap ton of unique elements about both their worlds to go over. To top this off, I grew up watching both of them on TV, Netflix, or otherwise, and to this day they are some of my favorite cartoons I've seen. Moving on to other cartoon ideas, the next two have some good ones. First being Slapstick vs Freakazoid, Marvel Comics vs Kids WB. A while ago, I started making blogs, and this was my first pick for one, which I've been trying to remake for a while. Don't worry, it's coming soon. I'm so sorry it's not been out at this point. I mostly picked this one for decent connections, great dynamics, and giving my guy Slapstick a chance to shine. Both these guys are 1990s high schoolers turned cartoon superheroes in the real world, but in parodies of other heroes, all while seeking that sweet, sweet money and or booty. Seriously, that's kind of their motivation. You can do a lot with their powers in a sort of fourth wall episode that the likes of Deadpool never really had, and use Slapstick's zany powers combined with Freakazoid's more Batman-style tools for a great fight overall. For example, maybe have a veritable dick measuring contest with their guns, only for Slapstick to fall short and Freakazoid to rub it in his face. Maybe at that point you could show off Slapstick assassin skills by having him lose his mind over this remark, which is kind of character for him, or more Toon Force-esque nature as he bashes Freak's skull in. As for who wins, I am making a blog on this, so I can't really say. Following that cartoon vs Marvel match is another cartoon vs Marvel match. In Spider-Punk vs Sonic Underground, Marvel vs Sega. Fun fact about me, I love watching somewhat niche media and growing my appreciation for it as a result. Sonic Underground was one such example, mainly from what I unintentionally found out from it through comparisons, since I watched Underground for making this as a blog, and it was awesome. This was another match I planned to remake my blog for, and it's no wonder why. Both Hobie and Sonic are alternate reality counterparts to snarky speeder heroes, but living in dystopian realities filled with robotic and man-made monsters that they battle for your music and their bands. It's really just a vibe match, and there's plenty you can do with it in ways of the fight. It would obviously start in a battle of the bands where Hobie escalates things, being, Hobie, leading into Sonic fighting back with that 90s attitude. Sonic's kit in Underground is way more versatile than you expect, like his various speed tricks like the Super Spin, and his guitar can blast several types of electricity. Both of these bounce off well with Spider-Punk, as regular Peter has villains like Electro and Speed Demon to bounce off with his. You can do various things similar to Amazing Spider-Man's Electro fight, and have Sonic do similar beautiful area of effect moves similar to Shadow vs. Ryuko through his twisters or otherwise. Hobie, on the other hand, could show off his acrobatics and brutal method of being Spider-Man, as well as classic web tricks or otherwise. You could also have a metal as hell ending, pun intended, of Sonic battling Spider-Punk's... well, I won't spoil that for you, but maybe read Spider-Punk's latest series and see what you got access to. Now let's take a break from the comics and move to Archie Sonic vs. Joker. Long story short, a few months ago I picked up Persona 5 Royale, after everybody in Versus telling me to play it. After I did, I only finished it a few weeks ago to be fair, I completely loved it. The characters were dynamic, the abilities awesome, the right spectacular, etc. And also gave me like 5 best girls off the bat, though none of them are beating Haru. But what it did also give me was a newfound appreciation for Joker. Ren vs. Giorno is still my most wanted, don't get me wrong, mainly because I want to watch Joker clap about his existence and his hype text. But hey, who doesn't? That's mainly debated legacy-wise. As for things like actual connections and fight dynamic, Archie Sonic is definitely my favorite for Joker. Teenage fires against godly beings who defy fate is just a vibe, as is all the cool abilities both could throw at each other that Giorno just kinda doesn't have in the same way. Sonic's chaos powers can bounce off really well with Joker's persona powers, and it'd be really cool to see them just bounce various stuff off each other, or resist the other's tricks. This isn't even getting into music potential, where Persona 5X Sonic's track would go harder than I can even fathom. Moving back to comics, I know, is Jubilee vs. Mina Ashido, Marvel Comics vs. My Hero Academia. I thought of this a while back, mostly because I wanted a good Mina idea, but now it's genuinely my favorite for both, and logically the best for them both as well. Both are teenage mutants with superpowers that can destroy everything, in worlds where their powers are common but feared or loved in a nice contrast. Both are also gamers and dancers, so they're automatically best girls. Seriously, if I could date a single My Hero Academia girl, I'm picking me without question. Though Mirko and Araka do got me feeling some type of way. Really, this idea of 2 fun-loving teenage girl superheroes is just a great idea I want to see get made, especially for fight dynamic and banter. You can incorporate their skating/sliding into a great chase where they lob projectiles at each other, implement dance moves in a potential callback to Deadpool vs. Deathstroke, and use both their essential super forms in a real plus ultra moment for the finale. Oh, and shocker, I'm remaking my blog for this, so I can't really say who wins. After that hell of a match, let's get into a real hell of a match. In Altier vs. the Devil, Hazbin Hotel vs. Cuphead. For a while now, I've not had any real favor for both, despite really great options for each other. Altier is probably the only character Hazbin or Helva I genuinely like and don't gag at, and the Devil is one of Cuphead's best characters in the show, as well as a fantastic final boss. I love Dr. Facilier and Hades for Altier and the Devil respectively, but both are kind of washes, so I looked for other opinions until I saw this. Both are sneaking and conniving demon lords who gain dominion over others through deals, but are heavily associated with the 1930s by nature of who they are. You could try and pair the Devil with Hazbin Hotel's actual devil Lucifer, but I think Altier fits better given he's an actual villain, and the added 1930s style you can take the fight of both beer and jovial, but are in actuality true monsters deep down. Even better, you can have an electro swing musical number given their penchant for these in their shows, and have both get more and more angry as things go on until they've lost their cool and the Devil has come to collect his due. Oh, and frankly, this is kind of how it's gonna go as well. In other words, Altier gets Alice stopped. Now, before we get into the rest of the comic matches, let's talk about Altier versus the Prince, if I said Altier's name wrong. This one is mainly vibes and history for me right now, as I haven't played Assassin's Creed and it's been a while since I looked at the Prince of Persia games. The movie was fire though. Either way, it's 2 roguelike heroes who run and leap over buildings while hacking away at enemies and the original parkour adventures. There's also the fact that Assassin's Creed was based off Prince of Persia, so yeah. I like Altier and Ezio roughly equally for the prince, but Altier just does more with the Apple of Eden, so I'm told it's just better. You can do a lot choreography-wise with this in both running and leaping across buildings as they chase each other, or perhaps taking down guards while evading enemy fire and each other, sort of like Leon versus Frank. You can also mesh Prince's time powers nicely with Altier's powers, like how the prince can take down all of his Apple clones with his dagger's functions or ward off its mind control with the King's sword, which could even bring back the Dark Prince for a fun callback. You could also have Altier outwit the prince with his assassin's tricks, like bombs, to trap and almost kill him until Prince reverses time to escape it. Overall, it's just a fun video game match and I'd love to see it. Next up is a personal favorite comic book match of mine in recent years, Kingpin versus the Penguin. There's plenty of other Street and Cosmic tier battles I like, but this one takes the cake for me right now. It's two crime lords with physically deceiving appearances that hide a brilliant mind and severe psychological issues that have shaped their criminal life and rise to become an unmatched crime lord who fights an acrobatic hero in tights. It's also got amazing contrasts as well as comparisons that make it even better. The biggest example of this is how Kingpin is a living superiority complex, while Penguin is a living inferiority complex. Both, at an instinctual level, need to prove themselves better than everybody else. Kingpin because he truly believes that he will not be made to look weak, and Penguin because he hates people laughing at him and thinking of him weak in general. For this reason, both would recently grow to hate each other as the fight goes on. Kingpin would very much underestimate Oswald based on his appearance, which so many others have done, and to find out this small fat oaf of a man is mucking up his operations would boil him in anger at Penguin believing he is more than just a joke. Oswald in turn would instantly be envious of this large titan of a man who everybody respects right off the bat and despise him the same way he does Batman. For this reason, not only would they hate each other, but hate losing to each other. Kingpin needs to prove himself superior to others, and being made to look weak, like when SpiderMan pimp slapped him after the anime fiasco, was a fate worse than death, looking like a powerless fat man with no real strength. Honestly, losing to this physically imposing freak of nature, that would be a nightmare made flesh for Fisk. On the flip side, Penguin losing yet again to someone he envies and views as one who had everything handed to him would draw out similar reactions, and even worse if Kingpin ever laughs at him. I already fell for this after that realization, but even more so when a friend of mine brought up that this could be a gang war. We rarely ever see army fights these days, and this one is the most unique example I can think of, given both can hire various villains from their city to wage a war for the crime crown. This can genuinely have battles like Deadshot vs Bullseye in it, because both are employed under Penguin and Kingpin. From this fight style, you can really showcase their funds, weapons, and hired help, all to truly showcase who the better crime lord is and maybe burn the city down in the process. There's so much I love about the idea that I can rant on and on about, but I'll save that for a later video maybe. As for who wins, I'm rooting Penguin all the way, thanks in no small part to his nuke umbrella. For my second to last pick, let's talk about a recent passion project of mine, Archie Tales vs Franklin Richards. For those unaware, I released a blog on this like a month ago, and I'm super proud of how it turned out. It's been a passion project of mine for a while after I got introduced to the idea through a friend of mine, Salinali King Katang, and it's been an all-time favorite ever since. The connections are that both are child to teenage superheroes in mutated team/found families, with a cosmic destiny to herald a great rebirth for all of creation, and to save all that there is from godly threats. There's honestly a lot more to go into in this vein, as both go through very similar character arcs. Both Tails and Franklin have expressed great personal doubt over living up to the standards set before them, and have gotten quite annoyed when people treat them like a child despite their experiences. To this end, both have gone on their own adventures, like Tails' miniseries and Franklin's fun with the Power Pack, and struggled with psychological issues over the years. The idea really goes into everything I want for both characters after having read them multiple times, and the fight does things even better. The sky is the limit for what you can do with both Tails and Franklin's powers, and we can see a true reality warp or cosmic duel, as opposed to stuff that only dip their toes in the water, like Doctor Strange vs. Dr. Fate or Scarlet Witch vs. Zatanna. All their crazy powers and resistances would make for a fantastic animation of throwing whatever they have at each other in hopes to actually win, and the scale can get even higher if Franklin decides to bust out Galactus or something, heh. Even better, you can not only have a sad death thanks to the characters, but an in-character one as well. We all know Franklin's soul is the verse by blinking, but I came up with an idea a while ago where Tails tries taking Frank's powers with his Titan form, only to get overwhelmed and put on death's door. This would of course lead to Franklin realizing his mistake and crying over accidentally killing Tails, who would console him over this as he goes. That stuff would lead to my favorite part, Franklin willingly sacrificing his remaining powers to bring Tails back to life, reminiscent of how he saved Galactus. This mindset is exactly what I love about Franklin Richards, and why I really hope Death Battle goes in that direction if they ever do this. Finally, we have yet another Marvel vs. Archie Sonic matchup in Bunny Rabbit vs. Rogue. I've talked about this a bit before, but let's really dive into what I love about it. Both are Southern Belle superheroes and heavy hitters of their respective superhero teams, which had super iconic 90s cartoons, by the way. They gained their powers through a tragic incident when they were young that effectively locked away some of their humanity, while making them feel like monsters for being what they are. This formed a love-hate relationship with their powers, and that both hated being like they are for years, but those powers enabled them to help the family they found, and getting them taken away was pain incarnate for that feeling of being useless. These feelings would plague them until they found love with a teammate who would show them the beauty within that they held, and that they were no monster to them. They would ultimately receive the fairy tale wedding they always longed for, and finally find the self-love as they fight for their family. Even beyond the connections, Bunny and Rogue are just incredibly similar characters, filling the role of a big sister to the group while dealing with heartbreaking mental doubts and a desire to help their family through it all. Their kindness and warmth their story spread makes any potential banter an utter goldmine, and that doesn't even come close to the dynamic. Bunny being half cyborg means Rogue has to touch parts of her body that aren't metal for it to work, setting up an interesting dynamic of Bunny evading her steel and Rogue trying to land the steel. To this end, Bunny can shoot ranged attacks like her energy blast and missiles, which Rogue can absorb, leading to her launching her extended limbs or flying out of reach, which in turn can lead to a nice aerial battle. On Rogue's side, you can showcase her skills through trying to nail down Bunny and what her powers allow her to do. For example, her ability to drain abilities from a close distance would force Bunny to keep her own distance, and her method of touch-based combat could lead to some sick hand-to-hand choreography. More than anything though, this can lead to my favorite aspect, Rogue landing the steel. See, Rogue doing so effectively places herself in a mental battle of sorts with her target, where whoever loses will basically die. If she meets sufficient resistance, it's likely her powers will turn on her and threaten her own life. Whenever she lands the touch on Bunny, the fight can lead into a fantastic mental battle, where both fight with all they have as their memories flash around them, and the Rabbit proves she's more than a bot by overcoming Rogue. Bunny wakes up and sees Rogue sitting on the edge of a cliff they fight near, visibly dying. At this, Bunny can comfort her and mutually apologize for the mistake, which itself leads to an amazing interaction of Rogue admitting she's terrified of dying alone, to which Bunny simply holds out her hand with her robot arm, holds her hand, and comforts her as she passes with tears in her eyes. As Anna Marie fades away, Bunny closes her eyes and softly utters, "Good night, sugar," before carrying her off in the glistening twilight. These interactions and more are everything I want to see with these masterpieces of characters, and my love for them is what has launched it into some of my most wanted. In case the script idea wasn't clear, I do think Bunny wins, though it is rather debatable. More than anything, I just love for this to happen no matter who wins, and after hearing my rant/yap section, I hope you'll see why I do. But more than that, I hope you will too. Well, that's my 200 video. Honestly, I hadn't really expected to make it this far off of the hobby, especially with the support as well. I can't thank you guys enough for all the love and support you've shown me as I've grown as a content creator, and I can only hope I can show the same quality to earn it in all the years to come. Thank you for watching, have an awesome day. Oh, and one more thing. We are so f***ing back!